Hey everybody, it's Kayleigh, and today we're going to be counting down the top 13 serial killers by number of victim. Now, while you won't find Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, or Michael Myers on this list, I think the real thing is a lot more terrifying. Number 13, Edward Gein. The inspiration for many fictional serial killers, such as Norman Bates, Jamie Gumb from Silence of the Lambs, and Leatherface, Gein was known for keeping trophies from corpses and making furniture and just general weird things out of their various body parts. Now, he was only ever tried for one murder specifically, but it's estimated that he killed somewhere between 2 and 8 people. Number 12 is Mark Sappington. Convicted of 4 murders on June 23rd of 2004, Sappington was a diagnosed schizophrenic who used PCP daily and claimed that the voices in his head told him that he must kill and consume flesh and blood or else he would die. Number 11, Jack the Ripper. Now, though more fiction surrounds the tale of Jack the Ripper than actual fact, and the identity of a killer was never named, there are over 100 theories about this brutal tale circa London in 1888. Now, originally tied to the 5 brutal murders of prostitutes in Whitechapel at the time, Jack has since been linked to as many as 16 in the area. Number 10 is the Zodiac Killer. Another legendary and unidentified serial killer out of the late 1960s in California is the Zodiac. Notorious for his cryptic and strange letters, as well as hanging up phone calls to the press, the Zodiac generally preyed on young couples, killing 4 men and 3 women between December of 1968 and October of 1969. Now, even though a killer was never identified, there were 3 major suspects in this case, which is still open today. The first died back in 1992. Second, in 2007, stepson came forward claiming that his stepfather was the Zodiac Killer. And lastly, there were DNA results from a man named Dick Geich sent in to the police, whose test results were never released to the public. Number 9 is Herman Mudgett, aka H.H. Holmes. Active from 1888 to 1894, Holmes targeted mostly young women during the Chicago World's Fair, luring them into his homemade murder castle. Now, this castle was tailor-made as a maze set above his own drugstore of 100 deadly rooms that used various techniques, including gas asphyxiation, for the mass murder of his victims. After the murder was completed, Holmes transported his victims to his basement by way of a chute. Now there, they were either cremated, dumped into a pit of acid, or meticulously stripped of their flesh so that Holmes could reconstruct the skeletons and sell them to doctors and medical schools as general models. While the actual number of victims of Holmes is unknown to this day, the general consensus sits that he killed somewhere between 20 and as many as 230 young women. However, the verified number sits at 27. Number 8 is Jeffrey Dahmer. Convicted of the murder of 17 young men and boys between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer is best known for some of his gruesome techniques, which included rape, dismemberment, torture, necrophilia, and cannibalism. It's known that he was generally fond of keeping body parts in the freezer and saving them for later. Dahmer was killed in prison by a fellow inmate in November of 1994. Number 7, Ted Bundy. Though he claimed to have killed over 100 victims, Bundy was convicted of just over 30 murders, usually preferring to bludgeon then strangle his victims to death, but he also participated in rape and necrophilia. He was executed in Florida for his crimes in 1989. Number 6, John Wayne Gacy. Known as the Killer Clown, due to the block parties he would throw for neighbors and friends to entertain local children dressed as Pogo the Clown, Gacy was convicted of the rape and murder of 33 young men and boys. 29 bodies were found on his property, most of which found in a crawl space underneath his basement. Now, Gacy was executed by lethal injection on May 10th in 1994. However, he spent most of his time in prison up to that point drawing clowns. Number 5, Donald Harvey. Nicknamed the Angel of Death by his co-workers due to the fact that he was usually present around those who later died in the day, Harvey operated out of hospitals in Kentucky and Ohio. He acted on his patients, killing them out of his so-called empathy for the terminally ill. Harvey used various methods to execute his patients, including arsenic, cyanide, morphine, insulin, inserting coat hangers as opposed to catheters, as well as general suffocation. He's killed somewhere between 36 and 57 people. Number 4. Waltraud Wagner and the Lane's Angels of Death. Wagner, along with 3 other nurses, operated out of Lane's General Hospital in Vienna in 1983 and confessed to 49 murders, but may have been responsible for upwards of 200 deaths. The women were caught after they were overheard bragging about their latest murder at a local tavern. Now, these so-called angels would usually kill their victims by pinching the nose of a patient and pouring water down their throat until they drowned. Initially, no suspicion was raised due to the fact that many elderly patients were found to have fluid buildup in their lungs. Number 3. Gary Lee Ridgeway. Known as the Green River Killer, Ridgeway confessed to 48 murders. No, he was convicted of 48 murders actually and confessed to over 71. Now, here's the strange part of the story. After he got divorced from his wife and began these killings, Ridgeway would take these women between the 80s and 90s down to the spot where his wife and he used to have sexual encounters, killing them there, raping them sometimes first, sometimes leaving the bodies there for weeks at a time to go back and have sex with them, but eventually dumping them into the Green River. Now, as part of a plea bargain to escape the death penalty after he was caught, Ridgeway is now serving 48 consecutive life sentences in the Washington State Penitentiary. Number 2. Luis Gavarito. Luis Gavarito, aka La Bestia, which means the beast, confessed to murdering 140 children between the ages of 6 and 16. Now, the process that he would usually go through was to go to street parks or out in the countryside, find children, offering them gifts or small amounts of money to gain their trust, and once this had happened, taking them for a walk. Now, once the children became tired of walking, Gavarito would take advantage of them, usually raping them, cutting their throats, and then dismembering the corpses. Now, unfortunately, after he was caught, he was sentenced to only 30 years in Colombian prison because that's the maximum sentence. And furthermore, since he helped authorities find the location where he had buried most of his victims, his sentence was decreased to 22 years, which means he'll be a free man again in 2021. Number 1. Dr. Harold Shipman. Known to be the most prolific serial killer of all time, with 218 murders positively ascribed to him, and speculation that the actual number he committed may have been double that, around 430. Shipman targeted mostly elderly women who were his patients and killed them through lethal injections of diamorphine. Now, prior to his death in 2004, Shipman mentioned to his probation officer that he was considering suicide so that his widow could get his pension in a lump sum. Shipman actually killed himself by hanging in his prison cell on January 13, 2004. Now, it's noted that most serial killers are obsessed with manipulation and control. So, killing oneself while in police custody could be seen as a final act of control. Join us in a future video when we'll discuss the word origins of devil, Lucifer, Satan, and Old Nick. Join us for our next countdown, which will be the 15 most notable crucifixions throughout history. Thanks for joining me on our countdown of the 13 top serial killers by number of victims. Don't forget, rate my video, please leave me any comments that you have, and subscribe. It's right over here. I'll see you guys later. While I was trying to say local and entertaining, and it went into local-taining.
What?
What?
I can't say that on camera.
Bro, for neighbors and friends to local-tain. What the hell? Ah! Okay. Serious subject.
This is not funny.
No, it's not funny.
And laughing matter.
No. Okay.